and I think he should be collecting that pension in a prison somewhere. And his victims, not just Michael, but the mother. I watched Catherine Jackson's tears roll off her face, or some of these horribly salacious things are being said about her son, and she's right up there in the second row looking at these witnesses telling these horrible lies, and the tears are silently rolling off her face. I could see Tito and Jackie Jackson, you could see the blood throbbing in their necks as they were angry, and they knew these were lies. But they couldn't say anything. They'd just sit there and take this dirt thrown in their face day after day by this slimy family who had been caught stealing from Penny's and then sued Penny's, claiming their security guards, the Gavin Avizio family, Janet Avizio, Janet herself had been caught stealing. And when the guards wrestled her to the ground to get the stuff she had stuck under her clothes that she was stealing from JCPenney, she claimed they raped her in a public parking lot. All that came out in the Michael Jackson trial, thanks to Tom Mesereau. And JCPenney, rather than fight it, just said, look, we'll cut you a check for $30-some thousand, go away. So she dropped her lawsuit against JCPenney for rape that never happened, for being fondled and molested that never happened. And they just let her get away with attempted stealing, and they cut her a check. Now, this is what's really cool. Tom Mesereau did some digging. He had his staff do some digging. Found out that she had applied for welfare. A day or two after, she gets this $30,000 check. And on her welfare form, she claims she's penniless, she has sick children, she has no home, all this crud, so she could get to the top of the welfare list and get emergency housing, emergency food stamps, emergency everything, and she's got $30,000. She committed felony fraud on her welfare. But all the stuff to put her in jail was proved. So you can see the justice system was very lenient towards the liars and the schemers and the deceivers and the extortionists. I mean, she was extorting Michael for money. I mean, that's just to clear what it was. Prosecutors tried to get this cop to lie. He refused. And he said, you've got this chart all wrong. You got these dates connected, the people they're calling, you got it all wrong. And then the prosecutor said, well, Your Honor, we'd like to withdraw this from the evidence. And it was the defense attorney, Tom Mesereau, stood up and said, no, Your Honor, the jury has heard this for a half a day. It's been entered in evidence. You can't withdraw it. You've got to leave it for the jury to consider as part of the evidence, good or bad, or words to that effect. And Judge Melville said, well, you're right. It was entered into evidence, and they've heard all this evidence for half a day, so we'll leave it in. But it was already proven. And again, the jury, some of them in the front row were rolling their eyes, thinking, oh, my God. So that's the second manufactured false evidence. That did 12 shows about the Michael Jackson trial during the trial, and the jury could have seen any of those shows, even though they're instructed by Judge Rodney Melville not to look at anything on radio or TV or in the newspaper about the trial. It came out later that some of them had looked at some of the national media things, and some of them have said they were astounded at how the media had twisted the actual substance of what was said by the end of the day, how they'd only report the accusations but not report the witnesses getting caught in the lies. Even Melville, I think, got angry with the prosecutor Snedden, and there was one point, there was a word, I forget just what the word was now, Tom Mesereau would remember, but they'd agreed out of the jury's ears that word would not be used. And Prosecutor Snedden used it once. He used it twice within 30 seconds. And then he went on and looked at the Judge Melville, his longtime buddy and friend, and sort of said something to the effect, well, if you don't mind me saying, and if I can continue, he used the word again, and Melville said, stop. Stop. And for Melville to say anything other than sustained or overturned, and to say to his longtime friend, stop, that was like screaming. at a close friend.
The vast majority have no clue. They just think Michael, well, I guess maybe, perhaps he was not guilty, or maybe he was, and he had slick attorneys, and he got away with it. No, no, no. Michael didn't get away with anything. Michael was the victim of 3 felonies, at least 3. And I'm sure a keen legal mind could go through those transcripts and come up with probably 10 or 12 felonies committed against Michael. Every time a witness was coached to lie on the stand, to me, that's felony evidence tampering. But the ones that are provable, I've already mentioned. The conspiracy between the prosecutors to do the fingerprints evidence presentation and the phone conspiracy evidence presentation where their own police witness said, this is wrong, you've got this wrong. And he refused to go along and just say, be a yes man. I mean, somebody ought to find out the name of that police officer, and I've forgotten. But someone ought to send that cop a Christmas card and say, thank you for standing up for the truth. The media was in on the lynching and the inquisition of Michael, and one incident stands out in my mind. There's a woman called Diane Dimond, and all these people that were, chiming in to just get their 2 cents worth of fame and say they cover the Michael Jackson trial. They didn't cover the Jackson trial. None of them had a reporter there through the whole trial. Most of the major networks, most of the networks were rotating their staff every 2 weeks. So they could honestly say, well, I didn't hear that evidence that Mr. Wagoner heard. I wasn't there that week. And then they may have heard something, but they didn't hear the conclusion of it. 2 weeks later, somebody else did. So they could all duck and say, well, we weren't really conspiring. It's just we were rotating. Diane Dimond and I happened to be standing. It was a very crowded. They had a green tarp around the space so that the fans at the fence couldn't see us when we came out. We're in this pool. And Diane Dimond sticking next to me. And I think it was the day, I'm pretty sure it was the day, that Mesereau just proved that the boy couldn't possibly have had that magazine given to him by Michael, like he testified, because, in fact, the magazine, Barely Legal, October 2003, had not yet been published in January, February, or March. So it couldn't have happened that way. So the boy was obviously lying, and it proved that Tom Snedden had committed felony evidence tampering by giving the boy the magazine at the grand jury with no gloves on